Hey guys, tonight we're venturing deep into the rice fields of ancient Thailand, where moonlight isn't just beautiful, it's a weatherman. You're barefoot, the earth is still warm from the day, and the fields shimmer like someone spilled melted silver across them. The air clings to your skin, thick with the scent of grass, buffalo, and last week's rain. There's a frog somewhere in the dark, croaking like it knows something you don't. Spoiler, it probably does. Because in this world, the moon isn't just for romance. It tells farmers when to plant. It warns of droughts. It might even be blamed when someone wakes up with a headache. The moon in ancient Thai farming life is not just a celestial body. It's a character with moods and messages, and ignoring it is something you probably wouldn't survive for long if your rice depended on it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step out into the dark, where a narrow bamboo path runs between paddies, the water reflecting stars like a broken mirror. The moon tonight is full, white and luminous, and its position tells you everything. Too far east? Too early? Expect heavy rains sooner than expected. A pale halo around it could mean trouble. Old farmers didn't check their weather apps, partly because, well, smartphones wouldn't arrive for another few centuries, but mostly because they didn't need to. The land spoke. And if you knew how to listen, you'd have more than a fighting chance. You trudge beside a farmer. Let's call him Pa Noi. He's about 60, barefoot like you, and has been planting rice since before you were born. His shoulder carries a bamboo hoe, and in his mouth is a half-smoked cigar that might be older than some countries. When you ask him what tomorrow's weather will be, he doesn't look up. He just squints at the moon and says, "Too close to the horizon, rain before dawn." Historians still argue whether this kind of moon-based forecasting was pseudoscience or ancient wisdom wrapped in poetic thinking. Some claim it was all confirmation bias, remembering only the times the signs came true. Others argue it was a rich body of empirical knowledge, passed down orally, constantly tested and adjusted. But whatever the truth, the farmers believed it. And belief, as you'll soon find, is its own kind of accuracy. Tonight the moon casts long and strange shadows. Crickets chirp in steady rhythms. A pair of slow-moving ducks pushes through the flooded paddies. And behind you, somewhere in the far dark, a drum beat echoes, probably just teenagers practicing for a festival, but it adds just enough mystery to keep you glancing over your shoulder. Pa Noi stops walking and gestures toward a hill. "Tomorrow the clouds will sit low like a blanket," he mutters, more to the air than to you. See how clear the moon is now? Too clear. Apparently, too clear means you're due for overcast skies. Not today, not right now, but soon. The moon, you're learning, doesn't speak plainly. It mutters in riddles, like your most poetic friend after 2 glasses of rice wine. Another moon myth, one of the more fringe ones, suggests that if you count the number of visible stars around a full moon, subtract that from the moon's position on the lunar calendar, and multiply by the number of frogs you heard before bed, you'll get the number of days before the next storm. No one remembers who came up with that system, but you suspect they were really bad at math, or just wanted to impress someone at a moon viewing party. Still, Stargazing was indeed more than idle fun. Ancient Thai farmers often coordinated their planting with the Wan Fen, the day of the full moon, especially in the early monsoon season. Some even believed moonlight helped the rice seedlings see their own growth better. It's nonsense from a botanical standpoint, but from a spiritual one, it made perfect sense. Rice is life here, but rice is also timing. Plant too soon and your crop drowns. Plant too late and it dries out before harvest. The moon became a kind of gentle clock in the sky, one that didn't tick so much as drift. You pause beneath a tree. It's a tamarind, its silhouette sharp against the moonlight. Pa Noi breaks off a leaf and crushes it in his palm. Sour, he says, sniffing it. That means wind tomorrow, maybe lightning. You're not sure how leaf smell translates into weather, but you nod politely, as one should when speaking with a man who has outlived 2 floods and a rabid mongoose. In the distance, the roof of a spirit house glints like the moon's little twin. Offerings of fruit and incense line its ledge, though the smoke has long faded. Weather spirits, it's said, live in corners and shrines, and like to be bribed with bananas and jasmine. You'll visit that shrine later. Tonight's just about listening. The moon begins its descent. Your feet are caked in cool mud. Somewhere, a toad lets out a belch so loud, you briefly wonder if it was mocking you. Pa Noi glances upward once more. Tomorrow, before the sun, the wind will blow from the east. The clouds will drag their tails. You'll smell the rain before you feel it. You ask him how he knows. He shrugs. The moon told me. You wake up before dawn. Not because you're particularly disciplined, but because a rooster with a flair for dramatics decided to scream into the void at 4:12 a.m. Welcome to rural Thailand. The air is heavy. Not yet hot, but definitely thick. It's the kind of air that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel like sipping warm broth. You step outside the small hut where you slept, probably on a bamboo mat that creaked every time you so much as dreamed about turning over. And just like Pa Noi predicted, the clouds are dragging their tails across the horizon. The eastern sky is streaked with muted orange and gray, as if the sun itself wasn't entirely convinced it should bother rising today. You sniff the air and catch it petrichor, that earthy perfume that only appears before rain. And you remember his words from the night before. You'll smell the rain before you feel it. But before the rain arrives, something else sings its warning. Frogs. You didn't notice them last night, probably because the moon was so bossy, but now they're everywhere. The grass hums with their croaks, chirps, and rhythmic gulps. It's like a symphony of wet-throated prophets, all yelling at once. Some low, like a tuba stuck in the mud. Others were high-pitched, like someone lost their balloon. Thai farmers, especially in the northeast regions like Aizahan, have long considered frogs to be nature's little weathermen. And for good reason. Frogs are sensitive to changes in humidity and barometric pressure. When the weather shifts, so do they. A sudden spike in croaking, rain within hours, frogs abandoning a pond, flood risk, frogs burying themselves, drought on the horizon. It's not magic. It's a survival instinct wrapped in slime and a vaguely judgmental stare. Pa Noi joins you again, barefoot and shirtless, carrying a tin cup of something that smells like burnt rice and old secrets. He squats next to a puddle and points to a green frog the size of your fist. He's singing too early, he mutters. Rain before noon. Historians still debate whether these interpretations were truly consistent, or just local folklore stitched together over generations. There's no written weather code of frog songs, though frankly someone should have started one. But in every village the rules seem to hold. There's one frog in particular, known locally as Jung, whose call is sharp and repetitive, almost like it's counting. When you hear the Jung calling from tree bark or roof thatch, it usually means moisture is building fast in the air. If 2 or 3 join in, you'd better rush to cover your laundry. A fringe belief recorded only in a few oral histories claims that if a frog hops towards your left foot just after sunrise and then croaks twice, you'll get not only rain, but thunder. If it hops away without croaking, the sky stays dry. If it stares at you for too long, well, that one usually ends with someone joking that the frog might be your ancestor checking up on the harvest. Still, there's something beautifully grounded in all this, using the smallest signs to anticipate the biggest changes. You trail behind Pa Noi as he walks to the edge of a rice paddy. Water shimmers between rows of young green shoots, their heads barely rising above the flood. He listens, really listens to the frog chorus. Middle Pond is louder than the riverbank, he says. Clouds will split. We get rain here. The neighbors might not. He sounds so sure, like a man who's read 10 weather maps and still prefers the ribbit of a frog. And you realize this kind of prediction isn't about perfection. It's about noticing. And over time, noticing becomes knowledge. Even the frog's position matters. Those sitting higher up on rocks or banana trunks suggest rising water. Those nestled near the ground, or partially buried in mud, are prepping for dry days ahead. And if you see them huddled under leaves, you'd better cover your head too. You crouch to observe one little guy, a blotchy brown fellow with wide yellow eyes and a puffed throat. He croaks, pauses, then croaks again, louder. It feels oddly personal. Pa Noi chuckles. That one's dramatic, probably just wants a mate. The rain hasn't come yet, but the entire landscape feels like it's holding its breath. Trees sway a little more than usual. Dogs bark once and go silent. And the frogs are now the main act. In some regions, kids used to build little frog sanctuaries, shallow pits lined with banana leaves, offerings of rice flakes, even songs sung to encourage the frogs to call the rain. A ritual, yes, but also a reminder that even children knew to watch the signs. And then, just as predicted, the first drop hits your forehead, not cold, not sharp, just a soft thud, like a polite knock from the sky, then another and another. Within seconds, the rain is falling in a gentle misty curtain. The frogs erupt into chaos, as if they're celebrating their victory over meteorologists everywhere. The clouds roll heavier now, and the wind that follows smells like moss, clay, and distant thunder. You and Pa Noi duck under a thatched awning. He sips from his tin cup and smiles. Told you, frogs don't lie. You believe him. In a way, you kind of want to ask the frogs what tomorrow's stock market will do. But they're too busy singing. The rain keeps falling. Not a downpour, but a steady, insistent drizzle that feels like it might last all week. You sit beneath the shelter of Pa Noi's awning, watching the paddies turn into an enormous reflecting pool, the young rice shoots swaying like dancers in a slow motion line. And even here, there's more to observe than just frogs and, yes, more frogs. You start to notice something else subtle, slippery signs that don't croak or hop, but still whisper predictions into the attentive ear. It's in the scent that curls up from the earth after the first drops. That musky green smell isn't just pleasant, it's a message. Locals say if the scent is strong, like turned soil or fermented bamboo, the rain will stay for hours. If it's faint, the skies may clear before lunch. Inside the bamboo huts, this knowledge is old, inherited. Elders will pause mid-task, sniff the air with narrowed eyes, and then either reach for their rain capes or go on with their day. It's almost infuriating how accurate they are. You step inside one of the huts, light filters through the slats, and the floor creaks beneath your weight. A low fire smolders in a clay hearth. A pot of something herbal bubbles lazily. Hanging herbs, lemongrass, turmeric root, and galangal dry above your head, perfuming the room. And in the corner, a bundle of leaves shivers slightly in the breeze. Banana leaves. Not the kind you wrap sticky rice in. These are weather leaves. You sit beside Mei Wan, a grandmother with bright eyes and a memory longer than the Mekong. She doesn't say much, but she gestures toward the leaves by the window. You see how they curl inward, she murmurs. They fear the storm. She's not being poetic. She means it literally. Banana leaves, like many tropical plants, are excellent at detecting moisture and pressure changes. If the leaves remain open and wide, the weather's likely to stay dry. But if they start curling along the edges or folding inward, it often means rain, humidity spikes, or storm winds. Mei Wan uses them like some people use barometers, only hers is biodegradable. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was. Some claim it was only popular in southern Thailand, where banana groves were denser. Others argue it was nearly universal in agrarian households. Either way, the plants became part of a kind of silent symphony, each leaf humming its own weather forecast. You watch her gently press her palm against the leaf. Too soft, she says, almost sadly. Tomorrow will be hot after this rain. She then looks toward the open door. But not before the wind changes. You might think she's just guessing, but there's something eerily assured about her tone, as if the wind had already whispered its plans to her while you were still scratching your head over frog algebra. Another plant to watch. Tamarind. It's small. Compound leaves open during the day and fold at night. But if they stay folded after sunrise, it's a sign of heavy air and coming storms. Mei Wan has a tamarind branch set in a jar by her bed. She checks it before she checks her husband. You step back outside and look around. The rain is easing and everything glows a soft green. The frogs are quieter now. You spot one sitting on a banana leaf like it owns the place, clearly unfazed by any weather drama. But above you, the clouds are shifting. Not retreating, just thickening, like cream stirred slowly into coffee. You make your way to a small wooden platform where herbs are drying in the sun, except the sun hasn't arrived yet. Instead, there's a strange, syrupy quality to the light. It's yellow, almost golden, and it casts odd shadows. You glance down and notice something peculiar. The fire ants are on the move. Dozens of them. No, hundreds. All carrying things, crumbs, leaves, the occasional unfortunate mothwing, and heading in a single line towards the inside of the hut. And that's when you remember. People here also read the insects. Insects, like frogs, respond to atmospheric pressure. When ants start retreating en masse into homes, it's often because they sense heavy rain or pressure changes. If you see them marching up walls or clustering near windows, it's basically their version of boarding up before a storm. Mei Wan chuckles. They're smarter than we are, these tiny ones. They don't wait for thunder to panic. You sit by the threshold, watching ant after ant disappear into the bamboo slats like tiny weather refugees. The house itself seems to adjust, bamboo creaking in sympathy with the wind, the thatch rustling as droplets begin to patter again. The scent returns this time stronger, almost spicy. Another family member, uncle dying, appears with a basket of herbs. He takes one whiff of the air and declares, "The wind's coming from the wrong direction. The storm will turn." Will it? You're skeptical until he points to the banana leaves again. They've flattened, no longer curled. That's the thing about this old weather knowledge. It's layered. You don't rely on just one sign. You read several, cross-reference them, build a kind of rustic algorithm from frogs, leaves, wind, ants, and yes, the occasional ghost story. And that's how these communities survive, not by precision, but by constant, humble observation. The rain resumes, this time a little stronger. You retreat inside again. There's warm tea made from pandan and lemongrass, and someone hands you a folded leaf filled with sticky rice and coconut. Outside, frogs start croaking again. Just one, then three, then a full choir. You look at May Wan. She nods. Rain through the night. And sure enough, the banana leaves agree. By the time morning slides in again, the rain has stopped, but the world still drips. Every tree, every leaf, every thatched rooftop sparkles with water clinging stubbornly in place. The mist floats low like a lazy spirit unsure whether to linger or rise. You step out barefoot and the earth squelches softly beneath you, a pleasing kind of mud, like walking through warm pudding. The frogs have gone quiet, and in their absence you hear something else, the low, unmistakable grunt of a water buffalo. There she is, just beyond the paddies, broad, majestic, and entirely unimpressed by your soggy state. Her skin glistens in the light. You watch closely as she flicks her tail, then jerks her head sharply toward her flank, followed by a few agitated twitches of her shoulders. Pa Noi appears behind you, munching on roasted rice, and clearly enjoying the show. She knows before we do, he says. If she starts stomping, get your laundry off the line. You laugh, but you don't take your eyes off the buffalo. It turns out that water buffalo were more than just four-legged tractors in ancient Thai villages. They were walking weather meters. When they twitched, flicked, stomped, or rolled, it wasn't random. It was red. Farmers would observe their movements during the monsoon to predict how heavy or long a storm might last. Some even claimed that the angle of their ears, drooping versus perked, meant the difference between drizzle and downpour. And while historians still argue whether this qualifies as legitimate meteorology or just desperate guesswork born of too many rainy days, the buffalo had one thing going for them: consistency. They lived outdoors, endured the same weather, and perhaps most importantly, didn't fake symptoms for attention. You crouch beside a younger calf who blinks slowly at you as if judging your shoes or lack thereof. Its breathing is calm, slow, no signs of stress. You look to Pa Noi. Good weather today, he affirms, nodding. But if she scratches too much, clouds will build by late afternoon. Buffaloes are especially sensitive to humidity and pressure shifts. The twitching you noticed earlier, that's a sign the air is thickening. If they start wallowing early in the morning, rolling around in their mud baths, it's a hint that the day's heat will be brutal. Wallowing later in the day, expect evening rain. And let's not forget the flies. Ancient farmers watched fly behavior just as closely. If flies clung stubbornly to a buffalo's back in the early morning, it often meant the air was heavy, ripe for rain. But if the flies disappeared midday, probably a dry spell coming. Even buffalo tail swats were tracked like tea leaves in a cup. You walk with Pa Noi toward the edge of the village. A narrow canal cuts through the greenery, and buffalo tracks stamp the muddy banks. Along the path are little jars, some ceramic, some coconut shell halves half buried in the ground, collecting rainwater. You stop. "What are those for?" He smiles. "That's Grandma's calendar." In many homes, elders would use jars and containers to track rainfall patterns. Not for measuring in milliliters, mind you. This was a tactile system. You learn by touching, by watching. Mei Wan joins you, holding one such jar. The surface ripples slightly as she tips it in her hands. "Less than last year, same day," she murmurs. "We'll need to plant early." She's not joking. She remembers the feel, the sound, even the way the water splashes on the ceramic. No spreadsheets, no graphs, just memory and habit. And so it was that rain jars became seasonal oracles. Over time, each household knew how full their jars should be by certain dates. If the jars lagged behind schedule, it signaled a delay in planting or a need to diversify crops. If they filled too early, it could mean flooding and ruined paddies. There's something oddly moving about this. Weather prediction not as a cold calculation, but as a sensory ritual. You imagine someone years ago waking up, touching a cool clay jar, and whispering to the family, "It's time." A fringe practice you hear about while chatting with an old uncle sipping black tea. Some families floated specific flower petals in their jars, depending on how the petals curled or sank. It was said they could foresee storm length. It's hard to say if the science holds up, but then again, neither do most weather apps in the jungle. You return to the buffalo enclosure just as the sun breaks through. Light scatters in the puddles, and the mud begins to dry in cracks and lines like an old man's smile. The buffalo moos, low and content. She starts to lie down. "Clouds will come late," Panoi says, squinting at the sky. "See? She lies on her left. That means the wind will turn." You raise an eyebrow. "Her left side?" He grins. "You laugh now, but tomorrow when your socks are wet, you'll remember." You sit on a wooden bench nearby, feeling the humidity beginning to rise. Birds call from somewhere in the palm canopy, and a group of ducks sloshes by with wild purpose. You don't know where they're going, but you know they're probably better informed than you. The buffalo chews lazily, eyes half shut. The wind shifts ever so slightly, just enough for the edge of your shirt to flutter. You glance at the buffalo. She twitches once, then settles again. You nod, finally surrendering to the unspoken truth of this place. In ancient Thai farming, the best meteorologists had forelegs, smelled like wet hay, and didn't care if you believed them or not. And just as you're thinking this, a dragonfly buzzes past your nose and lands on the buffalo's horn, balanced like a living exclamation point, as if to say, "See? We've got this covered." The dragonfly lifts off the buffalo's horn and zips into the warm morning air, leaving behind a hush that settles over the fields. You stretch your arms overhead, breathing in deeply, and feel the shift in the wind, not just cooler, but restless, like a breeze with unfinished business. And that's when Mei Wan calls you over. She's standing next to a tall ceramic jar nestled beneath the eaves of her bamboo hut, the kind with a faded dragon painted on its side. The lid sits slightly ajar, revealing water inside so still it looks like dark glass. This, she says, is how we listen to the season. You peek in. The water barely ripples, but something about it feels sacred, like you shouldn't speak too loudly. And then she does something curious. She taps the rim of the jar with her knuckle and listens. Not for frogs, not for buffalo, but for tone. Yes, sound. You're witnessing the ancient art of water jar observation, a quiet ritual practiced by elders who spent decades watching the skies and memorizing their echoes in clay. It's said that the tone of the water in the jar changes with the humidity, pressure, and even the coming intensity of a storm. A deep tone, heavy rain, a sharp ping, just drizzle. If there's barely any sound at all, time to pray to the spirit house. You try tapping it yourself. The sound is subtle, hollow, like a distant drum in a temple courtyard. May Wan nods approvingly. Tomorrow will be wet. Afternoon thunder. You blink. She got all that from that sound? She grins, then walks away, leaving you alone with the jar. A little freaked out, but very impressed. Historians still debate whether this practice was widespread or merely anecdotal, handed down within certain families as private knowledge. Some suggest it may have developed from ancient Buddhist rituals, where water jars were used during prayer, and their resonance took on spiritual significance over time. Others think it was pure environmental intuition. Either way, the fact remains. Villagers trusted the sound of their jars more than the government's official forecast. And it wasn't just the jars. Entire households became repositories of weather wisdom. You wander past the doorway curtain into Mei Wan's kitchen. On the back wall hangs a bundle of dried palm leaves, more than decoration. Each one, according to her daughter, was clipped on a particular moon phase during a specific type of wind. They're now strung together and hung high to signal the return of that same weather pattern in the future. If they crinkle loudly when touched, a dry season ahead. If they're limp and silent, rain's coming back. As you're processing this botanical time machine, a breeze slips through the slats, and something peculiar happens. A bamboo wind chime at the far end of the house trembles not from the wind itself, but seemingly from the pressure change. The sound is hollow, almost mournful. Someone whispers behind you, "It's the ghost of last year's harvest saying hello." You turn to no one there. Okay then, you step outside again and look around. People are beginning their daily chores. Some are out near the fish ponds. Others are sweeping mud from their front steps, which is essentially a race against nature. But what catches your eye is a group of children crouched beside a small puddle, carefully placing flower petals on the water surface. They're playing, but not just any game. This is another quiet tradition, petal divination. A local belief says that if a petal floats smoothly, the week will bring gentle rain and steady winds. If it spins in place, there's tension in the air. If it sinks immediately, beware of flash floods or arguments at dinner. The children squeal with delight as one of the petals twirls, then drifts toward the edge. One girl calls out, "Wind from the west." Her little brother responds, "Then we plant sweet rice?" You don't know if it's accurate, but it's beautiful. A quirky belief you hear about over lunch. Some villagers kept a mirror beside their window to reflect the first light of the day onto a bowl of water. If the light danced on the surface like goldfish, calm week. If the reflection broke into multiple beams, time to bring in the laundry. You sit cross-legged on the floor beside the hearth, sipping something warm and gingery, listening to the house breathe creaks in the bamboo, the occasional clatter of a spoon, the quiet hum of insects outside. Pa Noid joins you and begins recounting a tale about a year when the jars lied, the frogs went silent, and the ants refused to move, and still the rain came. Sometimes, he says, even the land gets confused, but mostly it knows. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a small, worn notebook, pages filled with dates, frog sightings, wind directions, and water sounds. His family's own handwritten almanac. You flip through it. Each page is a patchwork of ink stains, leaf prints, and rice water spills. It's messy, but it's alive. And it dawns on you, they've created a system entirely their own, not copied from textbooks or imposed by a meteorological institute, but crafted from generations of watching, guessing, failing, and watching again. It's not always right, but it's always rooted. You close the notebook gently. Outside, the wind is changing again. The leaves rattle. The frogs begin to stir. And a new cloud forms over the hill, high and thin, but unmistakably moving your way. May Wan appears beside you with a smile and a simple statement. Now we wait. And wait you shall, because in this land, the weather is not predicted, it's anticipated, felt, absorbed, like a story whispered in the rustle of leaves. You wait, but not like in the modern world, where waiting means glancing at your phone every 30 seconds and checking a radar app that's wrong half the time anyway. No, this is still kind of waiting, a full-body, soft-breath kind. You sit cross-legged beneath a mango tree, the ground slightly damp, the air warm like steamed silk. It's just you, the wind, and a few very opinionated frogs giving their commentary from the nearby ditch. The clouds above are doing something theatrical. The white puffball kind you remember from children's drawings are stretching, growing tails turning gray at the edges, like old laundry. You lean back on your hands, watching them shift and pile like someone quietly rearranging furniture in the sky. Panoi returns from the stream, holding a palm leaf basket and looking pleased. It's coming, he says, by late afternoon. You ask him how he knows. He lifts a single finger and points not to the sky, not to the frogs, not to the buffalo, but to the fireflies. Now it's still daylight, so you frown. Fireflies, he nods. Last night, too many, too soon. In Thai folklore, fireflies are more than just twinkly bugs that make children giggle and poets feel deep. They're messengers. When fireflies gather earlier than usual in large numbers, especially around certain trees like mango or jackfruit, it's considered a sign of changing humidity and pressure. And if they glow brighter or flicker more quickly than usual, rain is already en route. Historians still scratch their heads over this one. Could it be that fireflies, like frogs, are simply more sensitive to shifts in air moisture? Or is it all just another village tale made up during one particularly buggy monsoon? Either way, Panoi is convinced. You should have seen it, he says. The whole mango tree was blinking like a city. You picture it dark night, thick air, and a tree full of tiny lanterns, winking their warnings into the humid dusk. You're beginning to think you missed half the signs, simply by being too focused on frogs. Panoi continues. We say, if the fireflies come before the frogs stop, it means the rain will stay more than 3 days. You file that away. Another piece of the quiet puzzle. You decide to visit the mango tree yourself. It stands at the edge of the village near a small shrine. wrapped in yellow cloth. The trunk is thick, the roots gnarled like an old man's hands. You step around the base, imagining what it looked like last night, alive with light, glowing like the sky had fallen into its branches. As you walk, the breeze picks up. A leaf flutters to your shoulder and stays there, as if hitching a ride. The scent of mango flowers lingers in the air, sweet but sharp. A few bees hover lazily nearby, indifferent to your poetic moment. And then, at the base of the tree, you spot it. A small circle of blackened candle stubs, surrounded by white flower petals. Clearly an offering had been made. The connection between nature signs and spirituality runs deep here. Fireflies weren't just weather tellers. They were sometimes thought to be spirits themselves, or at least their messengers. Offerings were made not only to the ancestors, but to the creatures believed to carry their whispers. The logic is simple. If they warn us, we must thank them. It's a kind of gratitude rarely seen in modern forecasting. You sit for a while beneath the tree, and gradually the world settles. Even the bees seem to hover more slowly now, like they too are watching the sky. That's when the drumbeat starts. Faint at first, a dull thup-thup, like distant footsteps on wet wood, then louder, rhythmic. You follow the sound back towards the village square, where people are gathering. Children circle up with long bamboo sticks, some painted, some carved, and begin tapping them on the ground in time. Adults follow with palm drums, gourds, and even flip baskets. It's not a party. It's a weather request. A traditional rain dance, not the dramatic, Hollywood kind with feathers and lightning bolts, but a slow, stomping circular rhythm meant to wake the air. It's part musical ritual, part community forecasts, and part, well, entertainment. And you're swept into it before you realize what's happening. An elder, maybe 70, maybe 200, sits cross-legged, shaking a bundle of bamboo chimes over his head while muttering what sounds like a chant, but might also be a complaint about his bad hip. The children, wide-eyed, chant in unison, fon ma, jak in kao noi. Rain come, we want sticky rice. You can't help but grin. Historians aren't sure where these rituals started. Some trace them back to pre-Buddhist animism. Others to early agricultural cults that saw the sky as a moody parent in need of flattery. Either way, they persist. Not because they always work, but because they give people something to do when the clouds start teasing. A fringe tradition, now nearly lost, once involved hanging strings of bright red chili peppers in the corners of rice fields. It was believed that the heat of the peppers would encourage the sky to compete, cooling the earth with rain to balance the fire. Spicy bribery, essentially. As the drums echo through the village, the clouds above deepen in tone. What had been gray is now edging toward charcoal. The mango tree behind you sways in slow time with the music. And far in the distance, a low rumble, not from the drum rolls in. Thunder. The dancing slows. The villagers look up, not in fear, not in panic, but with a shared nod. You see it on every face, the knowing, as if the rhythm has worked its way into the clouds themselves. You're handed a palm leaf cone filled with warm rice and grilled coconut slivers. It's a thank you. For what exactly, you're not sure. Maybe for dancing, maybe for listening, maybe for believing that when fireflies blink and frogs shout and buffalo twitch, the sky just might be paying attention. By late afternoon, the sky has forgotten all its earlier promises of restraint. The first raindrops arrive not as a sprinkle, but as soft fists, smacking gently on rooftops, banana leaves, and your shoulders. It's not violent, not yet, but it's deliberate. The kind of rain that announces itself without apology, like a neighbor dropping by with soup and staying for dinner. You duck under a narrow thatched overhang as the rain thickens. It doesn't pour so much as settle, like an invisible curtain falling between you and the rest of the world. And in that hazy separation, something quietly beautiful happens. You notice the stars, not in the sky. Those are long gone, tucked behind swollen clouds, but in the stories. Because tonight, when people gather inside their homes or sit huddled beneath awnings like yours, they begin to talk about the stars they used to see. The ones that told them when to plant, when to harvest, and when to expect a wind sharp enough to make the papayas sway. One boy points up into the gray and says, "If the Pleiades were out, the frogs would have danced earlier." His grandfather nods, as if the stars still shine behind the clouds, just waiting for someone to remember their name. In ancient Thai farming traditions, constellations played a surprisingly practical role. The positions of stars like Dao Mok Kaeng, the equivalent of the Pleiades cluster, were tracked closely. If the Pleiades rose just before dawn, it was time to begin prepping the fields. If they appeared low on the horizon at night, the farmers would start checking seed stores and repairing dikes. And it wasn't just about the rice. Stars were also used to predict fishing cycles, insect swarms, and even when the snakes might get feisty. Farmers who couldn't read the stars were considered either too young or too distracted, or possibly in love, which back then was basically the same thing. You sip warm pandan tea from a bamboo cup, letting the steam blur your vision as Pa Noi joins you again. "Too cloudy to see Dao Ching," he says, referring to the morning star. "That means tomorrow will be heavy again." You're not sure how he knows where the star is without seeing it, but you no longer ask those kinds of questions. You just nod, like a proper apprentice. The funny thing is, the villagers didn't need a telescope or complex charts. Most of their astronomy was observational and rhythmic. They marked the rise and fall of constellations by season. Some families had personal star maps scratched onto banana bark or etched into the mud walls of storage huts. One elder tells you they used to map the stars onto the ceiling beams of their house, so children would learn to look up as they lay in bed. Tonight, no stars appear, but people remember them anyway. And in the quiet moments between the sound of rain on palm fronds and the buzz of sleepy insects, the air becomes full of starlight stories. There's one tale about a farmer who fell in love with the stars and refused to plant until a certain constellation appeared. The villagers mocked him until his crops thrived while theirs drowned. No one questioned him again. They simply looked up and tried to guess what he saw. And then, amid the cloud talk and nostalgic astronomy, someone mentions a name that makes everyone pause. Cao Dao, the Hill of Stars. It's not a real hill, but a term used to describe the sky when it's full of pinpoints just before the rainy season breaks. If the stars shimmer like dust scattered across black velvet, it means dry days are ahead. But if they look smudged, like chalk rubbed on fabric, that means rain. Or maybe heartbreak. The interpretations vary. Historians still argue over whether this stargazing practice was purely symbolic or functionally tied to migratory patterns and seasonal winds. There are no official records, only poems and chants passed down by candlelight. But in a way, that makes it more reliable. Memories cling longer than paper when they're wrapped in rhythm and shared over food. Outside, the rain begins to shift lighter now, more mist than pour. A few stars try to push through the sky's heavy veil. You spot one, maybe two. But before you can ask if that's Dao Mok Kaeng, Panoi has already answered with a hum. You don't need to name them, he says. Just know where they lead. And that's the whole system, really. Not an exact science, not a superstition, but a compass made of frogs, leaves, buffalo, and stars pointing forward, always forward. As night deepens, the village seems to shrink. The world becomes a collection of warm lights behind bamboo walls, flickering fires under clay pots, and soft voices telling stories no one remembers how they first began. You head back to your hut beneath the mango tree. The air is thick again, but it's no longer heavy, just close, just near. As you lie down, the frogs start up once more, not panicked this time, just murmuring like bedtime gossip. One last firefly zips past the bamboo screen, and from somewhere in the far-off sky, thunder speaks a final sentence, low and long, like a punctuation mark at the end of an ancient line. You smile in the dark. Tomorrow, you'll ask about the ants, but tonight, you sleep beneath forgotten stars. You don't set an alarm, because out here the village sets itself. You wake to a kind of quiet that only exists before dawn. Not silence, there's always something stirring, but a peaceful hush broken only by the shuffle of straw sandals, the low thuk-thuk of someone chopping cassava, and a rooster who sounds like he might have sleep apnea. You sit up, still under your woven blanket, and hear it, faint but familiar, a soft rustling near the bamboo wall. You listen closer. There it is again. Tiny footsteps. No, marches. Not of humans, not even of frogs. Ants. And not just a few. You slide open the bamboo screen and peek out. The line stretches from a cracked wooden post near your bed all the way across the veranda, over the threshold, and into the kitchen, where someone definitely left a speck of sticky rice last night. The ants are working overtime, tidy, purposeful, and in astonishing numbers. Mei Wan appears behind you, already holding a broom. You see them? You nod. They're marching west, she says, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. That means rain by afternoon. You pause, still blinking sleep out of your eyes. West means rain? She nods again, this time with her eyebrows. East means heat. West means wet. If they disappear completely, windstorm. In ancient Thai belief systems, ants were among the most reliable, albeit humble predictors of weather. Their movement, particularly after long dry spells, was carefully observed. A sudden appearance of long ant lines inside the home often meant a rise in atmospheric pressure and the likelihood of rain within 12 to 24 hours. Where they marched into cracks behind jars toward higher ground was watched with near military attention. Historians still argue whether these patterns were culturally uniform or varied between villages. Some recorded that ant behavior was connected to earthquake forecasting. Others noted they may have simply been following the scent of coconut sugar. But here in this house, Mei Wan believes. And after last night's starless sky and that deeply committed line of ants, you're inclined to trust her. You follow the trail to the kitchen, where several small piles of salt have been placed in their path. Not to harm them, just to gently redirect. It's a kind of respectful negotiation. You get to predict the weather, little ones, but please stay out of the soup. Pa Noi joins you now, crouching near the door frame, and examining the wall closely. "Look here," he says, tapping near a cracked tile. "They're going vertical." You frown. Meaning, he traces the line with a stick. "They're climbing early. Means the rain will be fast, maybe sudden. You'll hear it in the palm leaves first." Outside, the clouds are barely forming. The sun rises behind a curtain of mist, painting the village in that buttery gold light that only lasts about 23 minutes before the heat takes over. But still, the ants move. Still, they whisper. You eat breakfast, grilled banana, sticky rice with sesame, and a tea made from roasted rice husk, and watch them like they're stock tickers. There's something oddly calming about it. The ants know, the frogs know, the trees know. You're just the intern. After the meal, May Wan brings out another weather tool, a palm-sized stone tablet with etched lines and markings, almost like a miniature sundial. You ask what it is. "A memory map," she explains. "We mark when the ants march early, compare with last year." It's not exact. Some of the lines have worn away. But when she places it in the sunlight, the etchings shimmer just enough to hint at meaning. A record, not of numbers, but of instincts. And the ants, it seems, have rarely been wrong. You head into the fields later, barefoot, the soil cool and spongy. A few children run ahead, shouting warnings. "Ants on the fence." "They're climbing the jackfruit tree." You'd think it was a game if everyone didn't take it so seriously. And then from the south you feel it. Just a nudge. A breath. The wind shifts across your skin. Cooler. Denser. The ants begin to vanish into their holes. Some carry leaves. Others just hustle. As if someone blew an invisible whistle. And then it comes. A single crack of thunder. Not near, but not far. The sky hasn't darkened yet. It's still pale blue. But every living thing in the area just adjusted its plans for the day. A woman rolls up her mat. A boy grabs a shirt off the line. The ducks change direction. You, standing in the middle of a dirt path, glance back at the jackfruit tree, its trunk now glistening with ants still on the move. A fringe belief floats into your mind, something you heard whispered by the girls during last night's rain dance. If the ants march fast and then vanish, the rain will be soft and short. But if they march slowly and linger, the clouds will stay 3 days. You wait. They vanish quickly. Pa Noi, appearing beside you as always, squints at the tree. Soft rain gone by dusk. You sigh, not disappointed, not excited, just grateful. Because here, even the ants are generous enough to tell you what's next. By late morning, the world smells like something freshly unwrapped. The light rain from earlier has passed, just as the ants predicted, soft, short, and polite enough to leave your clothes dry if you stood under a banana leaf. Now, the sky is clean. Not blue, still the soft gray of steamed rice, but brighter, like someone turned up the backlight on a faded memory. You make your way towards the village edge, where the forest thickens slightly, and the sounds grow stranger. Frogs, yes. Crickets, of course. But also the slow creak of something larger, a tree maybe, or a door with too much history. This is where people keep different kinds of weather tools. A leafy, floppy, wide-shouldered kind. Banana trees. You've seen them all over by houses, near wells, beside fish ponds. But today, you're paying attention. Real attention. Because apparently, banana leaves never lie. You approach one such tree. Its enormous green fronds waving gently in the breeze like royalty, too bored to wave properly. The leaves look fine to you. Green, shiny, sturdy. But then Pa Noi appears, as always, and points to the edge of one. You see the curl? You squint. The very edge is curling ever so slightly inward, like a ribbon trying to hug itself. That means humidity's dropping, but the plant doesn't like it. Storm again by tomorrow evening. You blink. From one curl? He nods. Banana leaves react faster than we do. In traditional Thai farming lore, banana trees, specifically their leaves, are trusted indicators of rain, wind, and heat. When the air pressure drops quickly or the moisture levels change, the leaves often react by curling, folding, or, in some cases, tearing along their natural seams. A fully open leaf suggests calm weather. A curled one, either something just passed or something's coming. Historians still debate how much of this was observation versus romanticization. Sure, plants respond to their environment, but did ancient farmers really interpret leaf behavior accurately? Or did they just want something dramatic to point at when guests came over? But here, standing beside a jungle green tower of leaves, taller than you and more confident than any local news anchor, you're starting to believe it. You run your fingers along the underside of the leaf. It's soft, smooth, and still a little wet. It smells like the promise of lunch. Banana leaves are used for everything here: wrapping food, thatching roofs, even crafting makeshift plates and umbrellas. But none of those uses eclipse their role as nature's gentle weather vanes. Maywan appears from behind a smaller tree, this time holding a long stick with a piece of cloth tied to the top. She waves it slowly in the air. To feel the layers, she says. You ask what she means. Sometimes, she explains, the wind moves in 2 stories. The lower wind tells us today. The upper wind tells us tomorrow. You watch the cloth flutter differently near the tops of the banana trees than it does down by your knees. The upper motion is stronger, more consistent, the lower hesitant, a little lost. High wind is from the east, Maywan says, doctor. But the banana leaf still curls. That means it's confused. She looks thoughtful, then adds, when plants are confused, we should be careful. You nod slowly. A fringe belief from the southern provinces floats into your mind, told to you over a lunch of fish curry and tamarind juice. It's said that if 3 banana trees in a row show curled leaves while facing north, and the middle one begins to split, you must cancel your fishing plans. It wasn't just the weather, it was a sign of misfortune. Or at the very least, leaky baskets. Back in the village center, children are sitting in a ring, drawing in the dirt with sticks. One is sketching something that looks like a leaf with big spiral curls. Another adds tiny ants underneath. They're not just doodling, they're recording. The village's leaf book, Maywan explains, isn't kept in a drawer. It's passed along this way: shapes in dust, songs in kitchens, stories over soup. The leaves are the pages. The sky is the teacher. As you walk toward the temple steps, wide, old, slightly uneven, you pass a row of banana trees planted deliberately at equal distance along the outer wall. Monks say they offer shade, peace, and yes, a little meteorological support. Because when you sit in meditation beneath a banana tree and a leaf curls above your head, you don't have to open your eyes to know the clouds are planning something. You sit there a while listening. A fly buzzes lazily by. A frog somewhere laughs at its own joke. The banana leaves continue their slow, languageless dance with the wind. And then you notice something strange. One leaf near the end of the row is torn, not by a storm, not by an animal, but by pressure. Its natural seam has split, but only halfway. The edges are curling in opposite directions like two lovers turning their backs. You point it out to Pa Noi. He just smiles. That's not for today. That's the kind of sign you don't understand until after it's already rained. You nod. Not everything is for now. Sometimes the signs are memories in the making. The rain doesn't come that night. Instead, the air gets oddly still, like the village is holding its breath. You lie on your woven mat under the mango tree again, listening for something, anything. But the frogs stay silent. The ants are tucked in. Even the buffalo has stopped twitching. And in that silence, you hear something new. A faint crackle, not fire, not insects. It's coming from a nearby tamarind tree. You sit up, curious. The crackle comes again, a tiny snapping like the sound of crumpling old paper. It's subtle but rhythmic, and it's coming from the bark. Pa Noi appears beside you, as he always does, like a forest spirit in flip-flops. Did you hear it, you ask? He nods. The trees are talking. You raise an eyebrow. They do that, he says, right before lightning. Now you're listening with purpose. Sure enough, another soft crackle slips through the darkness, this time accompanied by a low groan from a coconut palm further off. Not the wind, something deeper. In ancient Thai tradition, the phenomenon of trees making faint cracking noises before a storm is more than just a curiosity. It's a warning. Elders believe that trees spoke before lightning as a result of pressure shifts in the air. The sap inside would respond to changes in electrical charge, sometimes causing micro expansions that made the bark groan or pop. Historians still argue whether this was a folk misinterpretation of natural tree sounds or an early understanding of how vegetation reacts to static buildup. Either way, when the trees began to talk, people lit their lamps, closed their windows, and moved their laundry indoors. And sometimes, just sometimes, they listened too late. There's a story Mei Wan tells as you sit on the porch, sipping tamarind water with ice that never quite melts. Years ago, a boy ignored the warning of a crackling bamboo grove. He stayed by the river, fishing through the still air. The trees popped again and again, but he laughed it off. The lightning came not near, but near enough. His fishing pole sizzled like oil in a wok. He wasn't harmed, but his hair turned white for 3 days. They called him cloud bait for a year. You stare at the tamarind tree again. It's perfectly still now. But the silence feels loaded. A fringe belief floats back to you from a conversation 2 days ago near the spirit house. It goes like this. If 3 trees crackle in the same night, and one of them is a fruit tree, lightning will strike water the next day. No one really explains why. You're just not supposed to go fishing. As you sit in the gathering darkness, the wind picks up, but from the wrong direction. Instead of coming from the west, like it usually does before rain, it brushes your cheek from the northeast, sharp, cooled, scented like pepper leaves. Pa Noi lifts his nose slightly. That's storm wind, not yet thunder, but soon. You step inside the hut, and it's as if the entire house already knows. Bowls are turned over, clothes are brought in. Even the beetle nut tray gets tucked into its lacquer box. There's a tension in the bamboo slats, subtle, like a held breath. Then one flash. No sound, just a light that feels too close, too white, too silent. A moment later, the thunder rolls in, long, low, and oddly melodic, like a slow drum dragged through the clouds. You sit beside the window, watching for the second flash. It comes brighter this time. This one has sound immediately after, A single palm leaf slaps the roof. Somewhere, a dog whines. The rain follows 5 minutes later. But it's not the soft storybook kind. It slaps the earth in sheets, drilling down through mango leaves, puddling instantly into red mud. You hear the tamarind tree crackle again, but this time the sound is almost drowned by the thunder. Pa Noi is unbothered. He lights a candle. It'll last an hour, 2 at most. This kind of storm shouts at the sky, then walks away. You ask how he knows. He just taps his ear. The trees already said so. You lean back, watching the flames dance in the corner of the room. The sound of the storm becomes your lullaby. Rain drumming on the roof. Wind was hissing through the cracks. One more flash. One more crack of tree bark, warning from somewhere deep in the forest. Outside, the frogs begin again. But this time, they don't sing. They mimic. Their croaks match the thunder, echo it, play with it. It's eerie and beautiful, like the land is harmonizing with the sky. You whisper to yourself, not really expecting an answer. Do the frogs understand the lightning? And from the kitchen, Mei Wan calls back, they understand what we don't. The rain passes just as Pa Noi predicted, loud, furious, theatrical, and then gone like it had somewhere else to be. What it leaves behind is not just puddles, but a kind of breathless clarity. The air feels scrubbed. Every leaf gleams like it's been polished. The village exhales. You step outside and everything is washed and new. The buffalo is chewing contentedly again. The ants have re-emerged, not marching this time, but meandering casually, unrushed. In the banana leaves, flattened, slick, quiet, you don't see any frogs. Instead, your attention is drawn to something else, the spirit house at the edge of the courtyard. You've passed it a dozen times without thinking much. A miniature structure perched on a carved pedestal, roofed like a tiny temple with offerings of incense, flowers, and oddly, half a cup of sticky rice. But today, something about it feels charged. Mei Wan is there, sweeping the area around it. She places a fresh marigold garland on the ledge, lights 3 thin sticks of incense, and presses her palms together. She doesn't speak aloud. She doesn't have to. You ask her why the offerings are always replaced after a storm. She answers without looking at you. The spirits don't like loud rain. We thank them when it ends. Spirit houses San Fra Phum in Thai are part of nearly every home, field, and business. Traditionally, they are the dwelling places for guardian spirits. And when it comes to weather, these spirits are more than just honored guests. They're the ones you consult, appease, and occasionally blame. Farmers once left very specific offerings during certain kinds of weather. Coconut water to cool the wind, beetle leaves for calming thunder, sweets for coaxing more rain. And rice is always rice for stability, abundance, and goodwill. You kneel beside her, watching the smoke rise in the slow spirals. It doesn't blow sideways. That's a good sign. A light breeze brushes your face. From nowhere, Pa Noi appears again. When the incense leans, he says, the storm isn't finished talking. You glance at the sticks. The smoke rises straight. Then we're fine, he shrugs. For now. You're beginning to realize that for now is a weather category here. It's not just a temporal placeholder, it's a forecast in itself. Something between peace and possibility. Historians debate whether spirit house offerings were truly believed to change the weather, or if they were simply part of a larger ritualized respect for nature. Were people negotiating with the sky? Or were they just acknowledging that humans aren't the only ones watching? Either way, the practices persist. Some villagers still leave 7 grains of rice, no more, no less, on days when the frogs stay silent and the ants stay hidden. Others whisper their worries into betel leaves and place them under stones near the spirit house, just in case. There's even a fringe belief, mostly whispered among older women, that if you hear 3 knocks on the side of your spirit house during the night, you must burn banana leaves before sunrise, or the next storm will take something precious. You ask May Wan if she believes it. She gives you a look that says, "I've lived through 7 monsoons without a roof. What do you think?" You decide not to press further. Instead, you watch the spirit house a moment longer. A firefly lands on the corner post. The incense is half burned. And the half cup of sticky rice? Already swarmed by a polite circle of ants. You leave quietly. Later that day, you walk the narrow trail past the fields to a smaller shrine tucked under a Bodhi tree. It's older, weathered, moss-covered, leaning slightly like a tired uncle. But someone still tends it. A garland of jasmine hangs there, crisp and fresh. The Bodhi tree's leaves flutter in the wind, making that unmistakable heart-shaped rustle that sounds like paper being folded. Beneath it, a bowl of water catches the falling blossoms. The petals float, some closed, some open. A child sits nearby, watching the water. You ask what they're doing. "Seeing if the spirit is calm," they say. You pause. "And is it?" The child shrugs. "Depends on which petal sinks first." So you sit with them, watching the bowl like it's a crystal ball. A light breeze nudges one petal to the edge. It spins, flattens, and then slowly dips beneath the surface. The child gasps. "That means no thunder tonight." You nod, as if you've known this all along. In a world where satellite images and radar maps feel cold and distant, these petals and incense, frogs and fireflies feel like poetry made practical. Not because it's always accurate, but because it reminds people to pay attention to the clouds, to the trees, to the smoke that leans or rises straight. You walk back slowly as the light fades. The spirit house catches the last of the sunlight, glowing for just a moment before slipping into dusk. You glance one last time at the incense sticks. The smoke still rises perfectly vertical. The storm, it seems, is done talking for now. Dusk settles over the village like a well-worn blanket. You sit on a raised bamboo porch, legs dangling, a cup of warm rice water in hand. The frogs have returned, not loud and dramatic like before a storm, but mellow, content, like they're chatting just to pass the time. Fireflies begin to blink in the hedges. One lands briefly on your knee before floating off like a wandering thought. From somewhere behind the huts, a slow, thudding rhythm begins. Drums, not frantic, not ceremonial, just steady, like the heartbeat of the evening. You wander towards the sound, passing through a grove of palm trees until you reach the clearing where villagers are gathering. They've brought out old clay drums, split gourds, and metal pans turned upside down. A circle forms, not formally, not rehearsed. People of all ages, children, elders, monks. No one is really leading. Everyone simply knows the beat. You join the edge of the circle. A woman hands you a bamboo shaker. You nod in thanks, unsure what to do. But when the rhythm finds you, your hand begins to move without thinking. This isn't a performance. It's an offering. To what? The sky, the ground, the memory of water, the mystery of tomorrow. Rain dances in Thailand vary by region, but they share a few elements: drums, rhythm, and intention. Unlike the grand spectacles seen in tourist shows, the real ones are humble, earthy. They're less about spectacle and more about attunement. You watch as one man stands and begins to move in a slow, looping pattern. He's not dancing for applause. He's dancing to remember, to ask, to align. Mei Wan stands nearby, eyes closed, gently tapping two bamboo sticks together. Panoi claps in an offbeat rhythm that somehow fits perfectly. The sky above is a patchwork of stars and lingering clouds, the kind that look like unfinished thoughts. The air is cool now and soft, the kind of air that lets sounds travel far. You hear someone chanting, low and deep. Not words you recognize, but tones, drawn out syllables that rise and fall with the drums. You lean over and ask a girl beside you what the chant means. She shrugs. It's not words. It's a sound to help the clouds remember where they left their water. You blink. That's a joke, right? She shakes her head solemnly. No. You keep shaking your bamboo shaker. A fringe ritual you recall from an earlier conversation involves drawing a water buffalo in the dirt and dancing around it 3 times, counterclockwise. Then someone pretends to weep, asking the sky for pity. You don't see that here tonight, but you're told it still happens in some mountain villages. Historians still debate whether these rituals had any direct influence on rain patterns, or if they simply provided psychological relief, giving farmers a sense of participation in forces beyond their control. But no matter the science, the effect is the same. When people drum, the sky listens. And tonight it seems the sky is leaning in. A breeze stirs. Not from the north, not from the west, but from above. A strange down breath, like someone exhaling over the village. The drumming slows. A pause. Then one final beat and silence. No one claps. There's nothing to celebrate. Just something to feel. You sit down on the grass with the others. No speeches, no instructions. Just breathing together under the half-clouded stars. The frogs begin again, a soft call and response between one field and another. It almost sounds like they're reviewing the drum performance. Then someone nearby whispers, "Did you hear it?" You tilt your head. There, on the edge of perception, a crackle in the trees, just like last night, but gentler, less warning, more greeting. Mei Wan opens one eye. "The trees are waking again," she murmurs. "Could be a little rain, just enough for the eggplants." You ask how she can be so specific. She shrugs. "They told me." You watch the people begin to stand, gathering their instruments and heading home. Someone lights a torch. Someone else yawns and stretches like a cat. The girl with the bamboo sticks drops them gently beside the fire. "They'll remember the beat tomorrow," she says. You believe her? As you head back toward your sleeping mat, the earth feels different beneath your feet. Firmer, like it's decided on something. The fireflies still blink. The frogs are quieter now. And in the trees above, you hear the soft susurrus of leaves brushing against each other, like old friends exchanging secrets. And maybe they are, because in this place, the weather isn't just in the sky. It's in the soil, the stories, the sound of someone drumming alone by the river. It's in every whisper that rises up to meet the clouds. You wake with your cheek pressed against a woven mat, sunlight dappled across your face from where it filters through the banana leaves above. No rooster today, no frog choir, just a kind of hush that feels expectant. Something is coming. You sit up slowly, and the breeze brushes across your arms, warm and deliberate. The kind of wind that doesn't wander, it moves. Purposeful, slow and low to the ground. You step outside and spot Pa Noi already at the edge of the rice paddies, his hands behind his back, watching the horizon. His silhouette is still, but you can feel the alertness in him, like a heron before the strike. The frogs started again at dawn, he says, but just the chalk. You nod like you understand, and of course you don't. He sees your face and grins. Kalula pulchra, he says, as if that helps. The rain prophet. Ah, the frog oracle of Isan. In this region, some species are believed to carry messages from the weather itself, none more revered than the chayak, a plump, secretive frog with a surprisingly deep, vibrating call. It doesn't croak often, but when it does, the villagers listen. Unlike the louder, more social frogs, the chak stays hidden for most of the year, buried deep in cool, moist soil. Only when it senses a specific mix of temperature, barometric pressure, and underground moisture does it rise to the surface and sing. And when it sings, rain, heavy rain. Usually within 24 hours, some villagers even consider it sacred. Children are told not to chase it. Farmers lower their heads in respect if they see one crossing the road. And if a chak sings from the left side of the field, that's considered an especially good omen. You follow Pa Noi through the high grass to a shaded pond where the frog was last heard. The ground here is spongy, fragrant, and rich. Even the air is quieter, like nature's holding its breath in deference. You don't see the frog. Of course not. The chak doesn't show off. But the silence it leaves behind speaks volumes. A fringed tradition in these parts involves placing a carved frog figurine made from clay and painted with under one's pillow after hearing the chak. The belief is that it will carry your weather wish to the clouds. Usually, the wish is simple. Don't flood the chili patch. You ask Maywan later if she still does it. She doesn't answer, just pats her pillow and smiles. That evening the air thickens. The leaves of the tamarind trees hang heavier. Even the banana fronds have lost their crisp rustle. Everything is muffled, softened. It's the kind of atmosphere where sound doesn't travel well, but meaning does. The fireflies blink early tonight. And when you sit on the steps with your tea, you hear it again. A bloop, low, resounding. Like someone thumped a tiny drum under the earth. The chak, no echo. Just one call, but it's enough. Pa Noi pokes his head out from his hut. He's sure this time, he says. You smile. How do you know? He called once. You wait 10 minutes, then 20, and then slowly the wind turns. Not gusts, just a shift. A slow reversal of the leaves lean. Even the bamboo poles along the fence creak differently. Then come the clouds. Not towering and thunderous, but layered. Pale on top, gray beneath. Their bellies dragging across the treetops like lazy elephants. You stand beneath the mango tree. The frogs now begin their chorus, but it's the chak you hear beneath them all. A steady, patient note that seems to vibrate through your chest, as if your bones are tuning to the earth. Historians, of course, remain skeptical. Some dismiss the reverence for the chak as myth-making, no different from reading entrails or following eclipses. Others admit there may be something to it, that animals often sense what we cannot, and that humility might be the wisest approach to forecasting after all. You've stopped trying to measure it. You just listen. And when the first drop falls soft, round, right on the bridge of your nose, you smile. Not because you're surprised, but because the frog told you it would come. The rain falls slowly this time, like it's being careful. You sit beneath the eaves of a storage shed where wicker baskets hang like sleepy bats, watching droplets slide down banana leaves in long, lazy streaks. The world has gone quiet again, but not still. There's motion everywhere, just softened. The rice paddies darken a deeper green. A chicken fluffs itself in protest beneath a stilted hut. Even the frogs have gone from bold declarations to muttered side comments, like weathered old men who've said what they needed to say. And through it all, a saffron robe moves through the mist. A monk, barefoot, steady, stepping calmly through the mud as if it were dry stone. You watch him from a respectful distance as he stops beside a Bodhi tree, places his hands together and bows his head, not to the sky, not to the ground, but to the moment. You follow, at a distance. He doesn't speak. Monks don't usually explain things here, especially not the weather, but they notice. And when they do, it means something. It's well known in Thai villages, especially the older ones, that monks are quiet weather watchers. They don't use frogs or fireflies, not explicitly. But they observe in silence, often from temple balconies or under wide trees, reading the tilt of the light or the way the smoke from morning incense curls. You join him by the Bodhi tree. He opens his eyes, soft brown, sharp as rain. He doesn't say hello. He just looks at the sky and murmurs, rain with no echo. You blink. Is that bad? He smiles faintly. It's not bad. It's deciding. You sit down beside the stone path that leads to the temple. The wind brushes the tips of the prayer flags strung across the entry arch. They flap gently, not pulled tight, not limp, just fluttering, uncommitted. The monk continues walking the perimeter of the temple grounds, stopping now and then to pick up a fallen flower, right a tilted stone, brush water off a Buddha statue's shoulder. And all the while, he's watching. Not the clouds, but their reflection in puddles. It's an old practice, Mei Wan tells you later. Some monks track cloud patterns not by looking up, but by watching the water, still ponds, large jars, even the backs of brass offering bowls. They believe the sky speaks differently when it's inverted. A storm looks angrier when it sees itself, she jokes. But there's a kind of logic to it. Monks also track morning dew, how quickly it evaporates, what color it stains the clay tiles, and whether it leaves a ring around the spirit house platform. One elder in a northern province reportedly tracked the entire monsoon pattern for 40 years, just by measuring the angle of dew trails at dawn. Historians have occasionally studied this observational method, sometimes dismissing it, sometimes being quietly impressed by its eerie accuracy. No instruments, no data charts, just a mind sharpened by silence. The monk you followed is now sweeping the path with a fan-shaped broom, not in a rush. The rain has eased again, and the drops fall like punctuation. You ask him if he knows whether the rain will return tonight. He pauses, points to a spider web in the corner beam of the shrine. The web is sagging slightly, not from water, but from heaviness. If the spider sleeps in the center, he says, rain is done. If it moves to the edge, the sky is still turning. You look closer. The spider isn't there. So, what does that mean? The monk bows slightly. We wait. A fringe belief among forest monks says that if 3 temple gongs sound naturally, that is, without human hands, during a single week, the sky will break open before sunrise. No one's heard that happen in years. But even now, the old ones still glance at the gongs when thunder rumbles nearby. Back at the village, you sit with Pa Noi, who's carving something from bamboo. He doesn't look up as he speaks. The monks don't predict, he says. They recognize. Recognize what? When the land has made up its mind. It's late afternoon now. The rain has stopped. Again. But you feel it still lingers, just behind the hills or curled inside the next hour. The monk walks past your hut one last time, robes damp, feet muddy, face serene. He doesn't say anything, but his presence is enough. And the spider, still missing. The morning doesn't arrive so much as unfold. It begins with a whisper of mist that threads through the bamboo groves, hovers above the paddies, and curls around the spirit house like breath from an invisible giant. You sit outside with a bowl of warm, sweet potato and ginger porridge, watching the sky slowly repaint itself from pewter to pearl. Today the wind smells different. It's not the earthy, soaked sack scent of after rain. It's drier, lighter, edged with something crisp. Pa Noi joins you, chewing sugarcane like it's a personal philosophy. The two winds are arguing, he says. You glance at him. Which winds? He nods at the hills. Lom Ray and Lom Fawn. The dry wind and the rain and wind. In Thailand's folk weather lore, the two are not just meteorological forces, they're characters, opposing spirits with moods, preferences, and grudges. The dry wind, Lom Ray, comes sharp and insistent, often from the northeast, brushing the skin with a fine grit. The rain wind, Lom Fawn, carries weighty moisture, thunder, and dreams of mango trees bowing under the wet. And when these two winds clash, the sky forgets how to behave. That's where you are now, in the middle of a disagreement between giants. You walk the edge of the paddies with Pa Noi, the air moving in opposing pulses. One moment warm, the next suddenly cool, like stepping between two arguments in a crowded room. He stops by a tall coconut palm. Feel this? You press your hand to the trunk. It's trembling, faintly. Not from your touch, not from any visible wind, but from tension in the air. When the tree shakes but the leaves don't, he mutters, a storm is chewing on itself. Historians often dismiss these kinds of sayings as poetic exaggeration. But meteorologists in Southeast Asia have long acknowledged the complex wind systems that govern the shift between dry season and monsoon. Farmers didn't need formal names for them. They felt them. Every field, every leaf was a barometer. Mei Wan joins you, carrying a woven fan, not for heat, for sensing. She waves it gently, watching how the air presses back. Rain, wind comes from below, she says. Dry wind skims from above. You begin to notice the difference. The dry gusts lift the hair at the top of your neck. The rain wind slides across your knees. It's vertical versus horizontal, sharp versus round. Neither hostile, but neither willing to retreat just yet. The villagers begin small rituals when the two winds meet. No laundry is hung. No fishing nets are cast. Offerings at the spirit house are doubled. And meals are cooked early, just in case. A fringe belief says that when Lom Ray and Lom Fawn wrestle at dusk, the first thing to break is trust. Chickens may flee their coops. Buffalo may refuse to enter the pond. Children may cry for no reason. And if lightning comes before the wind settles, it means the storm wasn't meant for your village, but might pass through anyway. You head to a high spot overlooking the valley, a stony path once used by monks during their forest walks. From here, you can see the entire bowl of the land, rice paddies like mirrors, trees leaning slightly as if listening. a lone kite soaring where it shouldn't be able to. Then the sky changes. It doesn't darken. Not yet. But the tone shifts. Light flattens. Colors mute. The clouds, previously drifting, begin to hold still. It's as if the two winds have paused mid-argument, each waiting to see what the other does. Pa Noi closes his eyes. It's the waiting breath. You remain still. Then the movement. A ripple in the tall grasses. A sudden rustling of banana leaves. Dust lifts, low and slow from the dry path. The dry wind makes its last bid. One final push. Then the coolness returns. Stronger, fuller. The frogs begin again, not the loud choral kind, but a low mutter, like they're conferring in a huddle. May Wan appears from behind a tree, smiling. Lomfon wins today. The villagers begin moving again, faster now. Doors are checked. Mats are rolled up. Water jars are arranged in the open. Children squeal and point at the sky where the first real rain clouds gather, not scattered, but determined. The palm trees no longer shake. Now they sway slow, wide arcs that mirror the rhythm of approaching rain. You look at the sky, and for a moment, you feel it too, the surrender, not of defeat, but of return, of the land yielding to its thirst, of the air welcoming its heavier twin, of the people, ready not because they were warned, but because they listened. You take one last deep breath of the mingling winds, then follow the others back toward the shelter. The rain arrives not with drama, but with purpose. No thunder, no flash, just the kind of soft, soaking fall that makes the whole world smell like a garden's breath. It slips between banana leaves, dances along the rooftop, and pools in your cupped hands before dripping quietly to the ground. You sit just beneath the lip of a slanted bamboo awning, toes hovering over the rising puddles. A light breeze carries the scent of wet wood, green papaya, and earth that's waited too long to exhale. Inside the hut, someone hums a lullaby. You can't tell if it's meant for the baby dozing in a sling or the storm itself. But outside, no one is sleeping. They're watching the sky change color. It's something the elders do without needing to explain. You sit beside Pa Noi and May Wan, who squint towards the horizon like seasoned readers flipping through a familiar chapter. The sky changes before it chooses, Pa Noi murmurs. You look where he points. At first, it just seems gray, but then you notice the layers. Pale ivory near the treetops, a dusky lavender above the hills. And then just above it all, a strange, haloed amber, like sunlight trying to remember how to be warm again. The brighter the top, the quicker it clears, May Wan adds. But if the edges glow red, wait 2 days. These aren't colors you'd notice in the city. They're subtle, shifting, like old watercolors left in the sun. In ancient Thai villages, these tints were red the way sailors read sails. A pink-toned west sky at dusk meant dry mornings. A yellow-gray ring around the sun at noon suggested wind before evening. And a pale blue sky that fades to white too quickly. Watch for sudden rain in the next hour. You lean forward as the clouds begin to slide, not fast, but steady, their underbellies darkening like bruised fruit. Do you see the shadow on the hill? Pa Noi asks. You nod. There's a faint strip of darkness moving down the slope, like a slow curtain being drawn. That's the sky lowering its head, he says. When it bows like that, it rains again before sunset. You're no longer sure if that's a metaphor or a measurement. But it doesn't matter. A fringe belief from mountain villages holds that if the sky turns silver just before dusk, it means the spirits of the valley are walking the fields, touching each plant, to decide which ones will flourish. So when you see the light begin to turn faintly silver, quietly radiant, you lower your voice and stop moving. The chickens have gone quiet. The frogs have changed pitch. Even the ants, you notice, are clustering near the base of the water jar, not moving upward, just huddling. It's as if all living things are watching together. Then, out of nowhere, the sky clears. Not all of it, just a window, a single patch near the horizon, like the storm peeled back a layer to take a breath. Through that window, light spills not golden, not red, but something between. A muted peach, soft and blurred, lights the wet village in a glow that feels nostalgic, even if you've never seen it before. Mei Wan touches your arm and points. "The dragonflies," she says. You look up. Dozens of them, hovering low, zigzagging in a swarm over the muddy field. They only come when the rain is honest. You don't ask what that means. You just nod. In some parts of Thailand, dragonflies are said to follow clean storms, ones that don't bring sickness or rot. Their arrival after rain is a blessing. If they gather low, it means the rain was kind. If they rise quickly, the next days will be dry. And if they don't come at all, you cover your planting beds. You watch the dragonflies for a long time. Their wings catch the light like shards of polished glass. They dart and loop and pause midair like thoughts too fast for words. The breeze that carries them is different now, cooler, less uncertain. You realize the winds have stopped fighting. One has yielded. The sky has chosen. Pa Noi sees. He stands slowly and stretches, his joints popping like firecrackers in the distance. We can plant tomorrow. You glance again at the sky, now a gradient of pale blue and gold. There's still water dripping from the mango leaves. But somehow, it feels like the rain has ended even if drops still fall. As if the sky has moved on, leaving a little part of itself behind. You stand there quietly, watching the clouds let go. Morning returns with a kind of gentleness that feels rehearsed. The frogs have finished their songs. The ants are no longer marching. Even the wind seems to be tiptoeing through the village, rustling palm leaves just enough to say good morning. You step out into this quiet world barefoot, feeling the cool mud squish between your toes. The earth, after days of listening to itself, feels satisfied. Soothed, you notice the chickens. They're still, not frozen, not afraid, just still. Some peck softly near the fence. Others sit beneath the mango tree, puffed into little feathered loaves. No clucking, no scratching, just waiting. Pa Noi squints at them from the porch, sipping something that looks suspiciously like old rice and tea. When the chickens go quiet, he says, the clouds are having a meeting. This is not a metaphor, not here. In Thai folk knowledge, chickens are considered sensitive barometers of atmospheric pressure. Their behavior, whether they roost early, go silent, cluster together, or wander alone, has long been used to guess what the weather might do next. You sit beside him, watching one particularly intense-looking hen just stare into the middle distance. That one looks like she's seen something, you murmur. Pa Noi chuckles. If she starts grooming her chest, you'll feel rain before lunch. Sure enough, after a long pause, the hen begins methodically pecking at her chest feathers. You raise an eyebrow. Coincidence? He shrugs. If 3 more do the same, it's a guarantee. And so begins your unexpected morning of poultry surveillance. 2 more hens join the chest grooming club within minutes. A third flaps her wings once, then immediately settles down, quiet, tucked. You count under your breath. That's 4. May Wan walks by and adds, "Watch the ducks next. They always argue before storms." Ducks, you quickly learn, are louder and far less polite forecasters than chickens. They squabble and flap near the pond, pushing each other with their beaks and making sharp little yelps that echo across the water. One duck tries to fly, then lands badly and starts honking at nothing. "Wind's coming," May Wan declares. You wait for a rustle, a breeze, anything. It arrives 5 minutes later, quick and low, brushing against your ankle and stirring the wet grasses beside the coop. It smells like papaya, leaves, and clay. A fringe belief from a neighboring region says that if ducks begin to push each other and run in circles without taking flight, you'll have strong wind and short, fast showers. If they remain in the water and preen calmly, dry skies are ahead. You look back at the ducks. They've stopped flapping. One is shaking its tail feathers in a slow, relaxed rhythm. "Rain, then rest," Pa Noi says, almost to himself. Inside the house, someone lights incense for the morning meal. The smoke trails up in a spiral, not drifting, the kind of stillness that suggests the air has weight again. And when you glance back at the chickens, they're all quiet now, every single one, staring, waiting. It's a bit unnerving. You sit down and glance at the family dog lounging beside the fire pit. His ears twitched once, then again. Then his whole body stiffens, not alarmed, but focused. He stands, circles twice, then lies back down facing the opposite direction. Pa Noi notices. "See, even the dog knows." "Knows what?" "That the first raindrop will hit the roof before you finish your tea." You laugh. Then you sip. And then it happens. A soft thup. Right on the thatch above your head, you freeze, mug halfway to your lips. Pa Noi grins without turning his head. "Told you." Historians still debate how reliable animal behavior truly is in predicting weather. Some studies have shown correlations, especially with changes in barometric pressure. But here, no one's taking notes in a lab. They're watching, listening, remembering. Generations of noticing. Not everything is dramatic. Sometimes, a silent chicken says more than a roaring sky. You sit with the others beneath the awning as the light rain begins again. It's not a storm. It's not even a commitment. Just a gentle reminder that nature is still adjusting its balance. A frog croaks once in the distance. No chorus this time, just punctuation. The ducks settle. The chickens resumed pecking the ground like nothing ever happened. The dog sighs. The rain slows, then stops. Everything moves on, and so do you. The midday sun arrives shyly, peeking through thin clouds that trail like forgotten scarves across the sky. After so many days of rain, everything feels soft. Softer light, softer air, softer footsteps in the village paths, worn down by puddles and prayers. You wander through the forest edge with no destination in mind, just following the sound of the leaves above. They're not swaying. They're whispering. The trees are speaking again. You pause beneath a tamarind whose bark is still damp to the touch. A faint crackle hums through its trunk. But this time, it's different. Less of a warning, more of a murmur. You press your hand against the bark like you've seen Pa Noi do a dozen times. "You hear it?" comes a voice behind you. It's him, naturally. You nod. It's like the tree is buzzing. He squints at the sky. Lightning's nearby, maybe an hour away, maybe 4. You frown. "I thought the storm passed." He shrugs. "Some storms just circle back." You walk together into the clearing where a pair of mango trees stand like sentinels. One has a split in its trunk, scarred from a lightning strike years ago. The bark still holds a faint scorch. And though it fruits less now, the villagers still visit it when thunder rumbles. Not out of fear, out of respect. In Thai tradition, trees, especially old ones, are considered living beings, not just in the biological sense. They feel the weather, absorb it, and store it. Some even say they talk to each other through root and wind. And before lightning, they speak the loudest. You listen. It's subtle, but it's there. A rising tension in the air, the leaves trembling without visible wind, the soft static that dances across the skin of your forearms. Then, from far off, a deep, slow rumble, the kind of thunder that doesn't flash first. It just arrived, like a decision being made. May Wan appears near the shrine, scattering dried flowers beneath a tamarind. She doesn't look up. If the thunder rolls without echo, she says, it's still testing its voice. You glance upward. The clouds are thickening again, not in clumps, but in smooth sheets pale on top, gray beneath, like the belly of a sleeping beast. There's a fringe belief that when trees crackle before thunder is heard, you must not sleep until the second storm passes, or your dreams may carry too much weight. People burn lemongrass, chant under their breath, and keep one oil lamp lit until dawn. Not because they fear the storm, but because they respect what it carries. You pass by the lightning-struck mango tree. Someone has left a garland there. The blooms are fresh. You ask Pa Noi why. Not for the tree, he says. For what didn't happen? Lightning rarely strikes the same place twice, they say. But in this village, if a tree has been marked once, people check it first during every coming storm. They believe it remembers. And if it trembles early, others prepare. You place your palm flat against the trunk. It's warm, not sun-warmed, warmed. Another low rumble rolls in, this one closer. The frogs stir, not with joy, but with urgency. They croak in strange syncopation, short, sharp calls, spaced apart like drums from opposite hills. You turn to Pa Noi. He nods slowly. They hear the clouds scraping. The wind picks up, not rushing, but pressing. You feel it on your chest like a firm hand. Leaves start to dance. This is not the gentle, tumbling kind of wind. It has direction, intent. You return to the village with the others. No one panics, but no one jokes either. People roll up mats, secure shutters, and gather children from the riverbank. The spirit house receives a fresh pinch of rice and a splash of jasmine water. And then the flash. So fast, so white, it leaves an imprint on your vision. You close your eyes and still see the shape of the trees in its afterglow. Then comes the crack, not a rumble, not a roll, a crack, like the sky split itself on a rock. And then silence. Not one breath of wind, not one frog, not one duck's footstep in the mud. The pause is terrifying in its stillness. May Wan stands at her door, watching the mango tree. Wait for the second, she says. You hold your breath. And then again the flash, this time farther, fainter, then thunder, softer, retreating. The trees begin to speak again, not in crackles, but in creaks. The low groan of branches adjusting after tension. The frogs resume their commentary. A dog barks. Somewhere, a bowl is dropped. And it's over. Not gone, but past. Pa Noi places his hand on your shoulder. When trees talk softly after lightning, they're telling the sky, thank you. You nod, not quite understanding, but feeling it anyway. You look back at the lightning tree. The flowers are still there. The bark was still scorched. And above it, the clouds begin to break, just slightly, enough to let the wind exhale. There's something sacred about the quiet after a storm. It isn't silence, it's relief. The kind that settles gently into the creases of old wooden beams, gathers on the roof tiles like a final sigh, and clings to the cuffs of your trousers long after the rain has stopped. You stand beneath the overhang of the village temple, watching the last few drops of water drip from the corners of the tiled roof. Each one lands with a soft plink on the stones below, joining a puddle that's been growing all afternoon, slowly, steadily, like a thought becoming a memory. This is the part no one rushes, the after. You walk the temple perimeter, feet bare, the flagstones still warm beneath you. Along the edges of the building, the gutters spill over in polite streams. Somewhere behind you, a broom swishes in slow rhythm, an elder sweeping fallen frangipani blossoms, soaked and fragrant. "Don't step too loudly," May Wan calls from the far end of the courtyard. "The roof is listening." You glance up. She's referring, as always, to the old belief that the temple roof can remember the sound of rain, and if you interrupt it before the last drop falls, you might disturb the balance of the next cycle. It sounds whimsical, until you notice that everyone else is walking softly too. These aren't superstitions, they're rhythms. The monks emerge from their quarters, sleeves rolled, faces serene. One carries a brass bowl to collect roof water, not for drinking, not for cleaning, but for gratitude. It's a custom still practiced in smaller villages. Rainwater gathered after a lightning storm is considered spiritually neutralized, cleansed of any celestial anger, and thus perfect for making offerings the next day. You step inside the temple's main hall, where candles burn low and the scent of wet stone mixes with jasmine oil. The wooden beams above creak softly as if stretching after sleep. Then, just when you think the storm is done speaking, comes the drip. A single drop lands on the temple floor, perfectly centered in the offering bowl below. No one flinches, no one moves. "That's the last," a monk says. And just like that, it feels closed, not ended exactly, but sealed. Back outside, the world is shifting. The mist is rising from the earth like a second breath. Smoke begins curling from clay stoves. The frogs have gone back to being frogs, no longer prophets, just background musicians. A rooster crows too early for tomorrow, and no one corrects him. You wander through the fields, now shimmering in the low light. The rice paddies mirror the sky, rippling with every step of the ducks, now set loose to forage. A breeze carries the smell of wet straw and new shoots. The buffalo are back in their wallows, tails flicking lazily, chewing with the kind of focus usually reserved for monks in meditation. And just when you think the landscape has offered all its gifts, the sun dips low enough to catch the temple roof, now glistening with 1,000 tiny mirrors. The tiles sparkle like sequins in fading light. The last of the rain clings there, refusing to fall, content to stay suspended just a little longer. You hear Pa Noi's voice behind you. "You see that?" You nod. It means the rain was satisfied. You don't ask what that means. You've learned by now that not everything needs explaining. Some things just are. And then, one final thing. A scent. Faint as memory. A kind of sweetness rising from the soil, half flowers, half something older. You breathe it in and feel, somehow, the entire season in your lungs. This is what rain leaves behind when it finishes its work. Not destruction, not fear, just presence. And a hush so deep you can almost hear the rice growing. You wake on the final day without needing to. There is no thunder, no frogs, no creeping dread of storms along the horizon. Just warmth, stillness, and a certain rightness in the air, like the village has exhaled and, for once, not immediately braced for what comes next. You step outside and feel it instantly, the balance. The earth is neither too wet nor too dry beneath your feet. The sky is brushed with soft streaks of white, the kind that drift without purpose. The chickens are back to gossiping. The ants are aimless. Even the buffalo looks relaxed, tail barely swatting at flies. May Wan is already up, of course, sweeping the yard, but not urgently. This is gentle sweeping, ceremonial. She hums to herself while scattering flower petals around the spirit house. They like to be thanked, she says, catching your glance. Rain spirits, cloud spirits, even the frog gods. You ask if she believes in them. She just smiles. Belief isn't the point. Gratitude is. You spend the morning walking the village, taking it all in like a dream you know is about to end. The roof tiles have dried. The firewood is being restacked. People are planting again, sowing sticky rice, sweet herbs, and hope. But the most remarkable thing you notice, no one is looking at the sky. They're looking at each other. Because here, the weather isn't just wind and water. It's a community. It's memory. It's a long, slow conversation between people and land, retold through frogs, ants, banana leaves, and bowls of rainwater. And you realize, with a quiet certainty, that this knowledge the real kind, the kind that lives in calloused hands and second glances, was never written down. It was kept in stories, in habits, in tone, in the sound of someone saying soon instead of maybe. And so, as you sit down beside Pa Noi one last time, you ask him the question you've carried since that first moonlit walk through the fields. How do you know when the rain is really over? He doesn't answer right away. He pulls something from his pocket instead of a folded scrap of paper, brittle with age. On it, smudged and faded, are rows of notations, dates, symbols, frog songs, ant trails, moon shapes. And between the marks, in handwriting that dances like water, a single line: the rain ends when the remembering begins. He tucks the paper away and looks at you. That's how I know. You sit with that, the remembering, because now you will remember. The moon above the paddies, the frog who croaked once and meant it, the duck stampede, the incense that leaned sideways, the spider that didn't show up, the dragonflies hovering low like blessings with wings, and the trees, patient, crackling sentinels, always telling the truth in a language without words. In this moment, you understand. The weather is not something to predict. It's something to witness. And every gust, every droplet, every flash of light across the sky, it all becomes part of the farmer's true almanac. Not one made of pages, but of people, of memory, of you. And now, as night returns to the village for the last time in our story, you find yourself sitting quietly, barefoot, calm, perhaps even a little changed. The wind has gone soft again, not silent, just gentle, a kind of hush that drapes itself around your shoulders like a shawl. The frogs, if they sing at all, do so faintly more breath than sound. You watch a firefly blink slowly across the room, drifting upward toward the bamboo beams, where the shadows wait to settle in. The temple roof no longer drips. The trees no longer tremble. Everything, at last, has stilled. You breathe in deeply and easily. The scent of rice husk and rain-kissed wood lingers in the air, warm and familiar. And somewhere in the distance a monk's bell rings, once clear, soft, like a note falling into a bowl of water. You remember now. Not just the weather, but the quiet, the waiting, the wonder, the slow wisdom in watching, in listening, in letting go of needing answers. And so, let this story fade, not with a period, but a pause. Let the clouds drift on. Let the frogs sleep. And let yourself drift too easily, slowly and lightly, because you are safe. The rain has passed, and everything you need to know has already been whispered by the wind.